Welcome back to this training course where we are going to proceed from what we done in the previous video by renaming the server, setting up the time and date, and applying and updating patches. Now we need to set up the virtual network environment so that we create a network environment that the server and the Windows workstations can talk to each other. So I have these two instances running side by side. So this is the server 2019 and this is the Windows 11. So I'm just going to log in into the Windows 11. Now, when we set up these installations in the last lesson, where the last section where we were setting up the environment, we only just installed the Windows and we installed the server. We didn't do any network configurations or whatsoever. So it's just using the host adapter. It's using the bridge adapter or whatever adapter is set up by default at the moment so that it can get access to internet. So when I go to this Windows 11 workstation and I go to the CMD and I ping google.com, that means I can get internet access. I can be able to access the web internet and load web pages and stuff like that. And if I wanted to see what IP address I'm getting for this workstation, ipconfig, sure. So I'm getting this IPv4 address 10.0.2.15, which is assigned to me by whatever network adapter that is serving this workstation, right? So this has internet access. This also has internet access. You can see from here. So when I go to the server as well, and I go to CMD, we just need to validate that so we can ping google.com. And yeah, it's showing that it has internet access. So, and we need to see what's its IP address as well. ipconfig /all. And it's getting 10.0.2.15. which is the same IP that's given to the VirtualBox instance through its virtual adapter. So the application itself, which is the VirtualBox, is provided just one IP address, and that's been split between these two because I'm using one adapter for both, right? So if we want to be able to get these to talk to each other, obviously they need to have separate IP addresses. And this one should be able to ping this one, and this one should be able to ping this one. At the moment, we can't do that because they're both using the same IP. And there's no sense in pinging yourself. So we're going to continue to configure a virtual network where we would assign each of these instances separate IPs. And then we can try and ping them together and see if they can talk to each other. It's only when that is set up before we can have a virtual network that the server can run some services that can be pushed or accessed by this workstation. That's the essence of all these, right? So to do that, we need to go and configure the network adapters for these instances. To do that, we need to first power down all these machines. I'm just going to power this off. And I'll power this off as well. So they're powered off and I'm on the virtual manager now. So we would start with the server. Normally from a VirtualBox point of view, obviously the concept here is to know how to create a network that the server and the client or the workstation can talk to each other. I am using the VirtualBox as my platform to just demonstrate this training, but the concept will vary from work environment to work environments. You just need to know how to go about understanding the topology of wherever you're working or wherever you're going to work. If it's a virtual environment, how are the VM set up, how are the network set up, stuff like that, right? So based on that concept, you're just going to just set up the VirtualBox version of this just to apply common sense, okay? So in this instance, I'm just going to go to settings, and I go to network, and I would change this adapter, which is using at the moment, which is that. I'll change it to internal network, and I would go to advanced and just allow this so that it can be able to be it can be on its own as an instance, and it can be able to have its own IP and stuff like that. Man, there's much more into understanding how this works, but from a VirtualBox point of view, if you look up online, if you're familiar with VirtualBox, this is one way to go about it, right? Obviously, when we do this, that would mean that we are only restricting the network to something that's internal. So this wouldn't be able to communicate with external network, like for instance, communicate to web services. Like we can't ping google.com. So we will keep that as it is for now. I'll click OK. And we'll do that for the Windows 11 as well. Internal network, advanced, allow all, yeah. Okay, so once we configure them talking to each other, and then if we want to we set it up in the way that they can also access the internet. It's just a matter of going back to each and every instance and then adding a second adapter, which is another network adapter, and then we can enable it and attach it to the default one, which normally gets it to pick up internet services from the host PC, right? So I will just disable this first, and once we get the server and the workstation to talk to each other, then we can configure the other one. So I'm just going to start a server now, and I'll start the workstation as well. So this is a server running, and we have the workstation running. So just sign into this. And for the Windows workstation, the Windows 11 workstation, obviously you can see that since we configured that internal network, obviously I don't have internet access anymore. So when we go to CMD and I do another ping to google.com, cannot be resolved. So it's not having contact with the proper default gateway that would give us internet access, which is fine. And so that's basically the internal network setup. So we just need to go ahead and configure a static IP for this virtual network adapter so that it can now be on a network that's par with the server. So when we talk about devices being on the same network, so we have IP addresses, and IP addresses would normally be within a range. So you have, like, for instance, 192.168.1.0, and that range goes all the way to 254. So that means on the .1 subnet, that means all devices that are on that .1 subnet, they are in the same network, right? So we just need to set up a static IP for this. And normally I like to just go to control panel, and I go to network and internet, and I would go to change adapter settings, and we'll just go to properties for this, and go to IPv4. Actually, we don't need this. I'll just turn this off. Anyway, IPv4, go to properties, and we need to assign a static IP so that it has its own IP, unlike before when we checked they all have the same IP. So with this one, what we would assign it as 192.168, maybe .1 network, and then this would be say .2, and then we would give it the default subnet mask, which is basically this. We'll leave this as it is because there are some other configurations that we'll be talking about later on down the course when it comes to DNS, when we configure Active Directory. So I will just click OK on this. I'll leave it as it is. I'll close. So at the moment, when we go to IP config /all, we now see it has this 192.168.1.2 with this default subnet mask. Obviously, I haven't given it the default gateway. I intentionally did that. So we just basically need to get this set up as well to be on the same .1 network. And then that would mean they're within the same scope, and then they can talk to each other. After that's done, then we would now add a second adapter, which is the default adapter that we had at the beginning, and that will give it internet access, like another second layer of internet. So then they can both talk to each other, as well as they can now access the internet. Okay, so when I tried to boot my Windows, my server 2019, obviously in the previous video we had applied some patches and it hadn't kicked in yet, and it looks like it has now kicked in. I'm just going to speed this up a bit, and just give me 1 sec. So the patches had been installed and the machine is back up and running. I'm just going to go to local server, and it has DC01. Yeah, it's still assigned by dynamic. Okay, so we need to just double check this now. CMD, just like we did for the Windows 11 workstation. So when we ping google.com, it also obviously doesn't have internet access, and we need to just configure it to be on the same network. So I'll go to, there's a couple of ways you can do that. So you can click on this when you're in the server manager in local server, and you go to Ethernet. When you click on the Ethernet, it takes you directly to the NIC, which you can then provision with whatever configurations you want to do. Or you can do that manually by also using whatever way you use to get to this page. So for the server, we would give it a static IP of say 192.168.1 because we want it to be on the same network. 1.3 and same subnet max. We'll leave this as default as well, and because when we start adding rows and features or services, we'll include DNS, and when the DNS is set up, then we would configure the default gateway and the DNS. Then that DNS is what's going to be configured for this as well, so that they can talk to each other, so we can join the Windows workstation to the domain. So that's more advanced, and we'll explore that in the next videos. But this one, we just want to create the network that shows that this can connect to this and this can connect to this by using pings. So we have assigned a separate IP for this, which is different from the one we gave the Windows 11 workstation, which is a .2, and this is a .3. So I'll click OK, and I'll close. And I'll close this. And you can just refresh this. You can see that now it has a static IP of 192.168.113. So now they're on the same network, and what we can do now is we can try and see if we can ping this. So since you're on the same network now, we can try to ping 192.168.1.3. Typo. .3. And now it's pinging. So now that shows that this machine can have a handshake or communication with the server. And we'll try to replicate the same for the server. So now that we have gotten the static IP set up for this, and first let's just validate that IP config /all. And yeah, so it has the IP. So we can also try and ping 192.168.1.2, and it's taking longer, so it's not pinging. So it can't talk to the Windows 11 workstation, but the Windows 11 workstation can talk to the server. And probably we need to just double check to see, does a Windows 11 workstation have network discovery turned on? Can devices on the same network talk to it? To do that, we just go to the Windows 11 workstation. No, not Chrome. Sorry about that. go to network and internet settings, and we would go to Ethernet. It's actually not here. Actually, let's go back to control panel then. I'll come out of this control panel. Yeah, so you go to change, advanced, sharing settings. Actually, it brings you here. Okay, so private network discovery is turned off, so I'll turn that on. File and printer sharing should also ideally be turned on. It's a private network, but it wouldn't hurt to just turn on these as well to get rid of any possibility that is causing the reason why this can't ping this machine. So that's set up now. I'm just going to X out of this, and stop with that. Just get rid of this. Confirm, consent, and close. So now we can try pinging it again since we have enabled discovery. And so ping 192.168.12. Yeah, so they both can talk to each other then, but then they both can't ping google.com, obviously because the gateway hasn't been configured. But I'll leave that as something that we need to just do on a second adapter. So to do that, we need to power down the machines again. So I am just going to close this, and I'll just turn off the machine. I will turn this off as well. And I'll go to the VirtualBox manager. So we'll go to the server and we'll go to network. We'll enable the second adapter, and this one will give it the NAT. Click OK and go to settings, and this one will go to the network again. Configure this, enable it, and go to the NAT. Click OK. So they're both configured now. I will start the server first. Okay, so that's running. Once I get to the logon page, I would then start the Windows 11 workstation as well. So now that they're talking to each other, and the only last thing is they need to have internet services basically. So I'll go to input. I would go to, oh, here's a good sign. We don't see any warning triangle there anymore. Let's go to keyboard, Control Alt Delete, put in the password. I'll start the Windows 11 workstation as well. Cancel. So I would just double check to see if the internet is working. So we'll just go to CMD and see if we can ping Google services. So ping google.com. Yeah, it's pinging now. So Google services is working. So we would also just double check to see if can we also still ping this machine, or whatever changes we made to the NICs, did it disrupt the two devices being on the same network. So I would, now that this is running, I know it's IP, so I just ping 192.168.1.1.2, was it? Yeah, that's pinging as well. So they are on the same network now, and they also have internet services. That's just a shortcut way. Ideally, if you're in a proper environment, just one NIC should be configured for the same environment and for the same access to the internet, and that's done through configuring the gateway. So I just need to double check this as well. So CMD, and you can see it also has internet access, so we can ping google.com. It pings, and then we just try to ping the server as well. Ping 192.168.1.1.2. .1. I think the server is 3. Yep, that's ping as well. So we have set up a virtual network, and the two devices on the network can talk to each other. So that's the one step to set up the virtual network, and we build upon this. So next, we need to now that we've set up the network, we need to now start adding roles and features. We need to now start adding services to the server, and that brings our casual end to this whole section where we were exploring setups and understanding how server works from a basic configuration point of view. And in the next section, we will start focusing on Active Directory. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.